going to kind of stall a little bit because we had so many people that want to come on and kind of talk about this. I'm hoping that some of the vets from Saving Pets will be coming on to have to join into the discussion. And but I'm going to really kind of dive into what I think about it. These are my opinions based on 40 years of working in the boarding and daycare and grooming and both as a vet tech 12 years ago. I'm not anymore. So I have some pretty strong views and opinions on what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about what is exploded and is all over the news about this mystery upper respiratory infection that has taken the lives of a few animals. I want to be very clear that when we start to talk about it, I'm not minimizing it, but I do have some concerns that possibly fear-based news media can cause us to do things for our animals that might actually be doing more harm than good. So I just want people to be really aware of that and understanding that you got to kind of take a step back. That's kind of going to be my theme of tonight, is just take a step back and think about the dog in front of you, not what someone else has said or done or is going to do. Because at the end of the day, the decisions that you make for your pets they come down to you. And so if there's guilt or regret, you're the only one that has to sleep at night. So, but as you guys are coming on, I'm going to give some people, hi Dee. I haven't been on in a long time, and I cannot believe I even made it here. I am literally still wet from bathing dogs today. My manager came in today and said, hi, Wendy. My manager came in I think at 3:30, I think it was. And she said, the last 3 dogs will be here at 4, I think is what she said. And I said, the last 3 dogs in Tustin, because that's what I felt like today. I mean, it's interesting because last week we were really slow, and this happens every year. So I should be prepared for it. Every year, the week before Thanksgiving is really slow because everybody wants Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And so it's just kind of been crazy. I'm stalling. So for those of you guys who are already in here, I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to get in so that we can really kind of jump into this and talk about some stuff, because it's pretty scary. And especially the timing of it all, right? The timing is right around the holidays when a lot of people are not only boarding their dogs, but maybe they just have to go to a family's house where their dogs are going to be. And so we're in this really, really hard situation right now. So, hi, Marnay. So I want to talk about it, and hopefully just everybody who's involved and part of being in this community, or if you just have a dog that you're worried about. Hi. So I just wanted to give people time to get on. We have a lot of people wanting to kind of discuss this, and the timing of it, like I said, is important because a lot of people are traveling, and it's kind of this situation where it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I know my own clients are starting to kind of question, what's happening. What do I do? Am I making the right decision? I've already had these plans. I've got airline tickets, and, it puts you in such a predicament, right? Like, do I love my animal if I'm not willing to cancel my plans that I have to go visit my family, right? So you get this guilt, guilt from the family, guilt from your dog. Oh my God, am I making the worst decision ever? And so I'm hoping I can shed a little bit of light on it and maybe help take away some of that fear or confusion, which usually, the more confused you are about it, the harder it is to not be fearful of it. So I just want to kind of talk a little bit about what I'm doing with my own dogs and what I'm doing at my boarding facility and just kind of my thoughts on it. But want to make sure that everybody that can gets in here. So this is going to be running through Saving Pets, one pet at a time, as well as, which I'm looking up right now to make sure that that's all going how it should. It also runs through the Spaw and I think my Instagram. And so I know sometimes it takes a while for people to get in. So I'll tell you what. So for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to share a little story about Pilot while people are coming in. I know a lot of more techie, better people at this have music playing for a few minutes, but I'm going to share stories because I like to share stories. So went down to visit my mom. And for those of you guys who are just coming in, I will get to the topic. I promise. I just want to make sure everybody hears what has to happen. Plus, I'm also hoping that a couple of the vets will get on there, got this, and she doesn't board Dog Park Beach. It sounds like all she does is take dogs for walks. So that is exactly kind of what I want to talk about. And I guess we could probably jump into this comment real quick, Wendy. That's kind of what's interesting to me, because we're saying stuff like people are saying my dog got it. Well, we don't really know if their dogs got it, because we don't really know what it is yet, if there is anything, or if, my thought is, okay, is there really a new virus out there that is affecting dogs, or is this another one of the already many strains of kennel cough that have been existing for years and years and years and years and years, and perhaps maybe dogs that are experiencing the problem are either immune compromised, or perhaps maybe what we would normally use, right? We know about antibiotic resistance. So maybe the virus is becoming stronger because it's resistant to the antibiotics. There's so many unknowns right now. So I can't even give you guys definite. None of the vets that I've reached out to, that I've talked to, everybody's kind of like, I don't know. Is this the media freaking us out? Hi, Lolly. How are you? Is this something true? And if it must feel really true when you're a veterinarian who is trying to treat a dog who died from something. So of course you're going to have a lot of veterinarians and vet techs that are like, no, we had 4 dogs in our facility that died from it. So that feels very real. But what I do know is there hasn't been an actual identification that I know of, unless something came out right now. Oh, good. I'm glad. So I'm not really sure we can't identify anything yet. So we're not sure. I had somebody contact me and had made comments that about it possibly being the H3N2, which actually is a virus that had been identified back in, I believe, 2011. So if that is in fact the virus that is going around, then it's a virus that's been around forever. So, and then you have to look at population, right? We saw this happen with DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy. So where you had like, oh, dogs are dying from eating grain-free food, but then you start to narrow it down into the populations and you realize how small that number was. And then of course the fear, and that pops up every couple of years as well. DCM, every couple of years we get DCM thrown in our face. So as a boarding facility, of course, I pay very close. I've had my boarding facility, for those of you who don't know, I was a vet tech for 12 years, and I have owned my boarding facility for 23 years. But when you can answer, what should we be supplementing our dogs with? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So that's kind of where I want to lead this, is like, there's no harm in us protecting ourselves from any virus, right? I mean, sure, even for the coronavirus, if I know that it's, heightened, I might just, hi, Heidi. Wow, this is definitely kind of something that's stretched across the U.S. So I've got people coming in from all over. But I definitely want to talk about what do we do, and what I'm doing, what the Spaw is doing for any of you who are boarding with us. But I do want you guys to know that upper respiratory infections have always been something that plagued our animals, whether they are in boarding facilities or just walking down the street. They can pick up all sorts of things. They're sniffing constantly. Their nose is to the ground all the time. So in Canada as well. So it's interesting how far and wide this is spreading, but also it makes me a little leery of where the information is coming from. So I'm not trying to minimize it. Like I said, possibly this is a new virus. I don't know. But what I do know is that upper respiratory viruses have been around forever. Dogs have always gotten upper respiratory infections, and there has always been some dogs that will die from it, that will get pneumonia and get sick from it and die from it. It always is. Well, until it's identified. I understand they're saying they think it's a new strain, but they need to identify it. They need to actually go in and identify it. And even if it is a new strain, there's still some things we can do to protect ourselves, our dogs from it, and whether we're going to be going into boarding facilities or those kind of things. What's interesting to me is if this is a new strain, right? So if it is a new strain and they are saying it, and I mean, the news reports are coming in every 30 seconds. So I'm probably a little premature in speaking about it. So I want to make sure I say that. Anything that I'm saying is probably premature. So I'm going to handle this as if it is a new strain and what we should do about it. So, but right now, as far as I know, what's interesting to me is if we handle it like it's a new strain, just to be cautious and to be safe, then the idea to go out and continue to get vaccines, which is what my fear is that everybody's going to run out and over vaccinate their dogs, thinking that that's going to be the safer way to handle it. But if you're vaccinating for something that isn't even the strain, then you could actually, in my opinion, be putting your dog more at risk if you're going into a boarding facility and you're giving them a strain of, say, like parainfluenza, for instance. If you give your dog a parainfluenza vaccine and it's a whole new strain, then what you're going to be doing is your dog's going to be trying to deal with that strain of vaccine that you gave him, and then if he's exposed to the other one. So I think that for me, I absolutely am not going to be asking my clients. I don't recommend or require the Bordetella vaccine or the parainfluenza vaccine in my facility. So legally, I don't have to require it, and I don't recommend it. But I will say, since we can dive into what are we going to do now, let me just tell you, if you have to board your dogs this holiday season, there's a couple questions I would ask your boarding facilities, and look around. Maybe there's some other boarding facilities around. So let me tell you what I do. So, and I always do this. So this isn't the only thing I'm doing different that I just started doing today, and I think I'm going to continue to do from here on out, is I've been putting honey in all the water bowls. So honey is an antiviral, antibacterial. So I've just been automatically, that's something that I recommend people give to their animals. Once they have like a kennel cough or something, I tell them to give them some honey and then keep a very close eye. I would say, start putting some honey in your dog's water. And check with your boarding facilities and maybe ask or recommend, if you do have to board your dogs, that they do that. Like, hey, I know, there's this huge virus going around. So I'm honestly not really that worried about how much honey, unless your dog's going to drink like tons of it. But we change our water bowls at the spa constantly. So I just kind of put a bunch in there. If you want to, the better is Manuka. I'm not going to be able to be using Manuka at the spa because it is really, really expensive and I got to use a lot of it. But I am going to be using raw honey, and we're putting it in all of our water bowls just to kind of, the boarding facility, dogs drink out of the same water. And so we just want to make sure that we're keeping that water and changing it constantly and regularly. A couple other things that we do at the spa is we have a 2-week waiting period before anybody brings in a dog that's been recently vaccinated. You do not, in my very humble opinion, want to vaccinate your dogs right now and then throw them into a boarding facility without giving them time for their bodies to react to those vaccines. That's my fear, is what's going to happen. I'm putting a lot, Diane. I'm putting a lot of honey in there. I know a lot, but I just squirting it in there. I'm not real worried about it. I want to have a good amount of honey, but like I said, I'm changing the water bowls constantly. But I know one thing is and I'm very fearful that's what's going to happen, is all these boarding facilities are going to be like, oh my God, give them more Bordetella, give them more quick vaccine. And, the next day you drop them off at the daycare, and some of those vaccines can be shedding viruses, according to Dr. Dodds and Dr. Schultz. And so if we're going to be in this boarding facility with recently vaccinated dogs and a possible new virus that is running around, I think we're going to make the situation worse. So I would, first and foremost, if you're going to be going into a boarding facility, I would make sure that boarding facility has a waiting period. And if they don't, I think you're going to be your own dog and all the other dogs in that care are going to be more susceptible to it. Yes. Wendy, it should be okay. To be honest with you, I would have to ask Emily, Dr. Stein, because that's something I hadn't asked. But what I would do for now is probably take your teeth and put the teeth in a spray bottle, just temporarily, and kind of let the honey stay in the water so that your dog's getting the honey. It's like I said, it's antibacterial, antiviral. It actually helps with coughing too. So if a dog starts coughing, that's why we usually recommend it after kennel cough comes on, but I'm going to be doing it for other reasons. Sorry, I was reading Lisa's thing. So plus they're going to get the shots and might be exposed. Yeah. So yes. And then spray the teeth in the mouth and then leave the honey in the water for now. And then, when this thing blows over or we figure out exactly what it is, then maybe you can go back to doing it. And I can actually ask Dr. Stein if the honey would have any effect on the teeth. My first instinct is not. That it wouldn't, but I just want to make sure. Now, keep an eye out too if your dog has diabetes, those kind of things. Keep an eye on the honey levels because obviously that's some sugar. So you want to make sure that if your dog has diabetes, you're paying close attention to that. So other things that you want to ask if you're going to boarding facilities. So if they don't have a waiting period, I would be really highly suspect of bringing my dogs there because believe me, there's going to be a ton of people wanting to get extra vaccines, and especially with Bordetella because Bordetella doesn't really have it's considered a non-core vaccine. And so one of the reasons for that is because there's a lot of reasons why they consider the HVMA considers non-core. And one of those reasons is that it doesn't stay in the body very long. And so you have different vets all over the country coming up with some say 6 months. I've seen as much as 3 months. So now my fear is that you'll have these boarding facilities and some of these vets that'll say, well, we'll just do an extra one. We'll just throw in an extra one right before you go into boarding. So I would be really, really highly suspect if you're going to be boarding somewhere where they're just going to up the amount of vaccines that we're giving in order to keep it out, because I just think that's going to make it better, rather than making it better for your dogs. So you want to make sure there's a waiting period for any boarding facilities that you're going into. I would say at least 2 weeks, which is going to be really hard because if you're coming to mine, I've always had that rule. I've had that rule for 10 years. This strain has been around for a year and they still can't figure out what it is, and cases are spreading. The worry is it's developing into secondary infections that are antibiotic resistance. Yeah. Well, kennel cough, that's always happened with kennel cough. I know they're thinking this is a different strain, but that has always been something that could happen in a kennel cough that vets would be worried about, is that it develops into a secondary infections like pneumonia, those kind of things. My experience has been that dogs that it does go into secondary is dogs that are already immune compromised. Like you would see dogs that have heart murmurs get it, dogs with the smushed noses that don't breathe very well. They're prone to pneumonia, aspirating pneumonia, those kind of things. So they cough and they do it. So that has always been the concern for something like a kennel cough or parainfluenza. And whether we know whether this is bacterial, that's the other problem, is that if this is a viral, then yeah, those antibiotics are probably not going to take care of it. It has to run its course, and then it can turn into something like a pneumonia in that part. Yeah, like bulldogs. Yeah, exactly. So they tend to, when they get something like that, upper respiratories, they have a harder time going through it. Of course, dogs with diabetes, older dogs, puppies, dogs, in my opinion, dogs that are eating poor diets, dogs that are overweight, dogs it's just all these things. And that's part of my problem with this virus and the scare, is that we're having people say they were perfectly healthy and then they weren't. But what I'd really like to know is, were they perfectly healthy? I have people come to me all the time with extremely overweight dogs and claim that they have perfectly healthy dogs. An overweight dog is not a perfectly healthy dog. So until we figure that out, I personally am not worried about my dogs. They're not going to go get any vaccines. I'm not keeping them away from anything. I just make sure I feed them healthy. I am giving some honey to try to up that. There's a couple of other, I think it was Rita that posted some ideas for some herbs, and I know that some of the vets on Saving Pets had posted some stuff as well. So influenza A and canine influenza H3N2 is not kennel cough, but it presents as kennel cough. Yeah, positive for influenza A and canine influenza H3N2. Well, to your point, Diane, like that H3N2 has been around for a long time. So it's not a new virus. That's part of my problem with this, is that it's a we get all of these different reports. It's a mystery virus. It's H3N2. Well, that's been around since like 2011. So that's not an old virus. So are we just taking some of the same cases that we've seen with an old virus and then blowing it up? Clapsotrachea would definitely cause a dog to have be more susceptible, and you'd want to take some extra precautions, making sure that your dog, like other things like flea and tick medications put on your dogs right before they go into boarding facilities, it's toxic. So your dog is going to have to I had a case years and years ago. I'll give you an example. I have not had kennel cough, to the best of my knowledge, come out of my facility in a very, very, very long time. But quite a few years ago, I don't even know how many years ago, 8, 9 years ago, I had a woman come board with me, and I did have my 2-week waiting period, but she waited for that, but then I think she ended up getting the rabies, and we allowed her to come in with the rabies because rabies is a killed virus and it doesn't shed into it, and all this stuff. But she had a very anxious dog, and she had just put flea and tick medication on the dog. And that is one rule I now have, but didn't have back then. And this is why. So she had put flea and tick medication literally on the dog the same day the dog came into my facility. I know this because it still had the little, whatever, down the back. So it was all wet. And she had a very nervous dog. So her dog comes in. It took me 2 days just to get this sweet little dog to even come to me. It was so nervous. It was just awful. I hand fed the dog, did everything I could to get her to love me. But she ended up going home. And then a day after she went home, she started experiencing coughing. So we suspect that she had kennel cough. None of the other dogs in my care ended up with it, except this dog did. And we tried to explain it to her that when we compromise the immune system cannot deal with typical stuff that other dogs might be able to deal with. She was actually very upset and left me a bad Yelp review, which kind of sucked because we spent a lot of time getting her dog to love us, and even had a bunch of videos of her dog coming around. But my point is, if you have anxious dogs, if you're putting flea and tick medication, I would not be putting flea and tick medications on my dogs right now, period. Whether I was, period. But if I'm particularly worried about a virus that's going around that is so strong that people are walking their dogs down the street and they're getting it, I would absolutely not be putting flea and tick medications on my dogs right now. Especially because it's winter time too. Like we're going into winter. Fleas, not going to have very many of those. Heartworm, it's too cold. So I would be making sure I wasn't putting that stuff on, heartworm or flea and tick medications. I would be making sure that my dogs are eating anti-inflammatory or non-inflammatory foods. So staying away from like I always say, rices, starches, all that kind of stuff. Putting the honey in there, echinacea. I know some people like to use that to boost the immune system, keeping the stress down. Ticks are crazy bad up here in NorCal right now. I still would be really worried if I was worried about where my dogs were going to be exposed to this cough, then I would be. There's a product on the market too, Lolly, to look up. It's called Tickless, and it's a little tag. I've got really, really, really good results from that. I haven't personally used it. When I say results, people have been telling me. I haven't used it yet. So I want to use it on a few of my clients so that I can, I do that. I don't sell anything that I haven't actually witnessed work. So even though I have had a lot of people, but you might want to look into it. It's called tickless, and that's not going to affect your dog's immune system. So I would look into it. There you go. You just got some really great feedback from somebody. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, so I would be looking at making sure we're not compromising in any way. Stress can be compromising, flea and tick medications, heartworm medications, poor diets, recent vaccines. All of those things are going to be immune compromising. So we want to stay away from that right now. Other things your boarding facilities should be doing. Okay, I have HEPA filters that are run 24 hours, 7 days a week. I run HEPA filters throughout my my facility is constantly being run. We also have fans that we run as well to kind of circulate air and keep things going so that it's not just kind of sitting in the air. I highly recommend you check out your boarding facilities to make sure that they have HEPA filters, especially now because we're still waiting to see what this is. If they're not running HEPA filters, then they're not being proactive anyways, which they should be constantly be running HEPA filters in their facilities. Other things we do, and you'll notice this if you walk into the front of the spa, we have plants, live plants throughout. We're an indoor facility. So I wanted to make sure I was doing stuff that would help clean our air. So we have constantly running the HEPA filters and the live plants throughout the whole. I don't know how true that is. I just feel like having plants around, they clean the air. And so we want to keep that going. How does the facility clean, right? You need to ask these questions, guys, because I don't know any facilities that do this, and all facilities should do this. So we have somebody come in every morning and we actually shop back out the floors. So we put down vinegar and some, usually depends on which smell I feel like, but I'll use like lavender or something like that. We mix it with vinegar. We throw that on the floor. We scrub the floors and then we extract it out. So we're not just mopping. We're constantly extracting out anything that is on the floor. That's important. We do a lot of mopping because you have to during the day. So you want to make sure that that's happening at your boarding facilities, your daycares, your groomers. This is an airborne thing. So sometimes people think, oh, okay, well, I've had people do this to me where they come in for the grooming and they're like, I don't want my dog around any other dogs as I don't want him getting sick. And I always have to tell them, look, it's airborne. So the second you walked in this door, your dog was exposed. And there's nothing I can do about it. We do everything we can to keep it as clean and to keep it out of our facility. But you can't just say, I'll just keep my dog in a kennel like in a cage away from the other animals if it's a free run facility. And this might upset a few people, and I'm sorry if it does, but right now I wouldn't be boarding my dogs in any places that are also connected to a veterinary hospital, because if there are sick dogs, that is where they're going. So I'd be really careful in particular about that. There are some veterinary hospitals I know that kind of separate the two, like they might have two buildings where the animals go into the hospital on this side and then the boarding facility is on the other side. But you want to make sure that once they get in the back, they're not exposed either, because like I said, it's airborne and it can spread really far. So those are things you want to look into, making sure that that your boarding facilities are taking all the precautions. So I want to get through here. Why can't it and the canine flu shot be titered? They just don't have titers yet. So they have to create them. There's a lot of things there aren't titers for. There's not a titer for Bordetella as well either. There's not a titer for a lot of the non-core vaccines. They don't titer for them. I just want to look at this. Okay, so spray the teeth in the mouth. Yeah. Of course, my phone is ringing because I'm such a bad person that I didn't turn my phone off. I'm horrible at that. Sorry about that. Okay, so collapsing trachea. So do the pets who stay with me, though, tend to have vaccines? So I do require some vaccines. And interestingly enough, even though I don't require kennel cough or any of I don't require non-core vaccines, I will tell you that probably 98% of the dogs that come to me are vaccinated, because people either don't want to have that confrontation with their vet, or they just feel more comfortable doing that. I have no idea. So yeah, high levels of dogs that are coming to me are vaccinated, but no matter what people get for their dogs, I still make everybody wait 2 weeks. It's important. It's important for your own dogs. It's important for my facility, which I really attributed it to the fact that we haven't had kennel cough coming out. Now, I recently had a dog that she called me and told me that her dog was coughing, and we kind of went through the process of when her dog was with me and what's been going on. But she goes so many places with her dogs, and her dogs are at dog parks. We can't really say for sure. And because I haven't had any other calls, I'm assuming it wasn't at the spa. But it can happen. Like, I don't sit here and go, it could never happen at the spa. It could. It could. I mean, we do everything we can, but it's like trying to keep a cold out of a child's daycare. It's really hard to do that. So, but to me, like, the benefits outweigh the risks. And I know for somebody who took their dog to a boarding facility, and if the dog got sick and died, they wouldn't feel that way. But I absolutely believe that these are small numbers. I know it's all over the news, it's all over everywhere, but I do at this time. Tomorrow, if things change, things change. But at this time right now, with my experience, I really do believe that a lot of fear is being thrown out there without any hard, real evidence as to what this is. So I just want you guys to think about the dog in front of you. Think about what you're feeding, what you're doing, what you're putting on them. I know I have some people in here whose dogs are immune compromised right now. So those are the dogs that I would be extremely careful with, but I would be extremely careful with those dogs anyway. I just know that if you Google upper respiratory infections all over, you're going to find it every year. We get this that comes out. These come out every year. So, I just know that every year, every single year, as long as I have, yes, same with cats. Every single year since I have owned my facility, literally every single year, news reports come out about dogs getting sick in boarding facilities, and it's spreading all over, and dogs dying. Every single year that has happened. So I'm highly suspect, because I'm like, oh, here we go again. We're going to be talking about it. That doesn't mean that this time, like, I hate that argument. Well, it's always been that way. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. Maybe this one time it's not just fear. Maybe this one time it's an actual things happen. We just learned through the coronavirus, new viruses can pop up and they can affect our animals. So I don't want to be so arrogant as to say, nah, I've owned a boarding facility forever, and I've never, this has happened forever and ever and ever. I want you guys to take precautions. I'm taking extra precautions at the spa, putting some honey in the water, but the other stuff that I have always done, I've always done. So I feel like we're really, really already ahead of that in making sure, which I'm so glad I have that 2-week rule, because I think, oh my God, what if I didn't? What if I didn't have that 2-week? Try to implement that 2-week rule right now. Day after tomorrow is Thanksgiving. My boarding is going to be packed. So thank God I'm already, as a precaution. So here's the thing about going to the grooming shop. So if your dog doesn't need to be groomed, wait it out until we find out something. But if you have a dog who, when I say needs to be groomed, it's such a loaded question, really not loaded, but like, I don't know. Is your grooming facility taking all the precautions they can? Is your dog immune compromised? Does the dog actually, like, let's just do this. If I had a dog who was immune compromised and didn't really need to be groomed and could probably wait another month, I would absolutely wait the next month. Why not? Is there any dire need? If I had a dog who was immune compromised, but had hair and was just a matted and all of these things, I would take extra precautions when I went to the groomer, like making an appointment so that my dog can get in and out, like making sure that they're not putting any flea and tick, making sure that that grooming shop is taking precautions, right? Do they have HEPA filters running? Do they have, airflow going through there? Is there, yeah, it's, there's all sorts of, hi Nilsa, there's all sorts of things that we think about. But you have to look at all of the, it's always better, I think, to not stress yourself out about it. Like, no one says you have to board your dogs. If you're going to be stressed, don't do it. Don't do it, because you're going to put that stress on your dogs, and that's going to put your dogs highly susceptible. Nilsa says she's worried about boarding them next month. I don't know what the date is on that, Nilsa, but I think we're going to know a little bit more about this. I haven't heard of any cases here in Southern California. That doesn't mean that they're not coming up. And I can certainly let you guys know. Oh, so Piper, so I do have a dog here. Hi, Christy. So I do have a dog here. Piper has an upper respiratory infection she's had since early October. So see, things are going to pop up. So I'm going to find out a little something here. Yeah. So I think that you have to kind of look into Christmas and Christmas Day. So the end of December. So we'll know a little bit more by then, Nilsa. But definitely looking into, this is why I talk a lot about like all of the factors that get us to that point. And then the other thing I wonder too is, are these animals just becoming, are these upper respiratory infections becoming antibiotic resistant? Because normally we can give a dog something, an upper respiratory, an antibiotic for an upper respiratory infection, and they respond to it well, but maybe they're not responding to it anymore. I don't know. There's so much for us to learn and take in, figure out. And, but I think right now is the time for you to only do what you have to do. And we find out what's happening going forward. Don't board your dogs, even with me, if there's concern. After the nationals, yeah. But sick has always happened, Diane. That's why I'm back and forth with this. Dogs have always gone to big places like that and ended up with upper respiratory infections. It's kind of a pretty common thing. I think the big question now is this something newer, different? And how do we respond to it, I think, is the most important thing. And I think that if you could keep your dogs home, keep them home till we figure it out. There's no harm in doing that. If you can take extra precautions, do that. If you can't keep them home, make sure that you're asking the right questions to your boarding facilities. If they're doing all they can do, that's all they can do. And then after the fact, if your dog ends up coughing, then respond quickly. Don't wait it out. Don't think, oh, okay, given what we know, we want to respond quickly. We want to keep a thermometer by. Is your dog running a temperature? How's he acting? What's going on? So respond quickly is, I think, an important thing too, because the longer you wait it out, and especially if you have those dogs I told you, like bulldogs and older dogs, immune compromised dogs. But those dogs, I think you should definitely be keeping those dogs home. But if you have active dogs and you're being cautious, I think you're okay. But knowing what that means, there's so many people, like I told you, I have people who tell me that their overweight dog is healthy. I wonder if the antibiotic resistance is coming from dogs that are medications versus natural products. So much to learn. I know. It's crazy. So I don't know. All I know, for me, the best thing I can do is to keep my dog's immune system fighting the stuff he needs to fight and not fighting against the stuff that he doesn't. And so when we're over vaccinating, yes, I think respond quickly. So I think that if your dog starts coughing, we want to respond quickly. And that, given the situation, might mean go to the vet immediately and see what they think. And I would go to a holistic vet if you can find one, so that we don't jump right into an antibiotic, but that you can start tracking it, making sure, and that's without panicking. So if your dog coughs at night, one cough, don't go to the vet tomorrow morning. I wouldn't do that. But if you feel like this is progressing, then as soon as it starts to progress, then yeah, I would say get him to the vet. Especially knowing, like, even we know we're hearing, dogs are just walking down the streets and they can get it. So I just think there's just so much we still need to learn about this. And I just hope that you guys, you know, this is more helpful to you than it is to scare you. I'm not trying to scare you. I certainly get it. I mean, we've already had a couple of people cancel for their boarding, and I get it. It's scary. It's to think, this could happen to your dog is not something anybody wants. But I could tell you that I cannot think of another possible thing that I can do in order to protect them while they're in my care. So I'm doing everything I can. So if you are a client of mine, I literally cannot think of anything other than closing my doors. But I don't know that that's the answer either, because like I said, there's so many people who are going to be traveling, and if they're going to board somewhere, I believe that my place is probably one of the better places to board. I hate to say it like that because I don't want to be like, my place is one of the better places, but I have really, really done everything I can do. I don't have anyone to watch them here at home. That brings up a good point. So if you can have somebody watch them at home when you're traveling, that is always your better option. It always has been, though. Even before this virus, I've always said, as a boarding facility, the best place for your animals is at your home, but not always that either. Depends on who's watching them at home, right? Tell you a quick story. I have a friend who has a friend who hired the girl down the street to, thanks, Lolly. And Lolly's worked at boarding facilities, so she can tell you what I'm talking about. Like, I see some of these things that people do in boarding facilities, and or I have kennel attendants that come work for me that worked other places, and they tell me horror stories. But anyway, so I have a friend who has a friend who hired the girl down the street to come watch his schnauzer when he went out of town. And his wife and him were out of town, I think 3 days or 4 days. And when they got back, the girl forgot, and she never went to the house. And it was a little schnauzer. The schnauzer was okay, but there was pee and poop everywhere, and the dog hadn't eaten for 3 days. It was awful. So you have to, thanks, guys. You have to kind of make sure, if you're leaving them at home, that you really have somebody very, very responsible. I would be checking in with them every single day because, at work, it's what we do. That is what we do. We don't forget that we have dogs there. So we don't just not show up to work. The other thing is if you are leaving your dogs at someone's home, you have to be really careful too. This is a question I always tell people. If you're using something like rover.com, it's not just important the person you're interviewing that's watching your dog. It also is who else lives in the home. I'll give you an example. You board your dog somewhere. The girl who you've interviewed who lives in the house is great. Her references are great. Everything's great. But what she didn't tell you is that grandma lives in the back and grandma has a little bit of dementia. That is problematic. I know of an in-home boarding facility very close to my house. I'll just say that, very close to my house. And some of the people that are living in that house are actually criminals. So you want to know if you're using those those seem better, right? Oh, they only have 2 or 3 dogs, so that might be a better environment for me. But you need to know who else is in that home, not just the person that you're interviewing. And are they home all the time? Because a lot of these I know, awful, actual criminals actually broke into someone's home and attacked the neighbor next door, and they are running a boarding facility out of this house, and there's actual criminals living in there. So when you're using something like rover.com, it may be great because yeah, exactly. Better pet sitters cost a little more, but and even some of the most expensive people aren't so great either. You really got to know so much. But now I lost my train of thought. But yeah, you're right, Lolly. You gotta vet people on so many levels. So it's not always the greatest thing to have rover.com if you're not asking who else lives in that home, asking if that person is going to work during the day, because that has happened where rover.com, they're at work all day long and your dog is left home alone in a new environment, in a new home. And there's probably some great people out there that do it. Don't get me wrong. I am not here to there's great boarding facilities out there. There are great rover.coms out there. There are great mobile groomers. There are great everything. But in order to know that they are great, you have to vet them hard. You have to know what questions to ask, in particularly with your boarding facilities and that kind of thing. So yeah, I've seen some pretty bad horror stories where they say, oh, I'm home all day. And then actually the dogs are left all day long, which you may, even if, I always tell people, just because you leave your dogs home alone, maybe for 5 or 6 hours in your home, in your environment, does not mean in somebody else's home, in their environment, the dog's going to act the same way. So leaving a dog in a new environment home alone is a really bad idea. A really bad idea. So make sure if you're using something like and I think it's great, I like to keep my place smaller too, like a smaller environment. That's one of the other things. Like some of these boarding facilities have 150 dogs, 200 dogs, 300 dogs. I've seen that. And there's no way you're going to be able to control an environment like that. See if anyone, oh, there you go. Lolly would be a really good, if anybody's looking for something like that. If you think, oh my God, I have an immune compromised dog, he's never been boarded before, Lolly would be a really good, thank you, Lolly. I don't know if you're comfortable with typing that out so that it's here, but absolutely. If you guys have a situation like that, definitely Lolly is a really good resource. Where I live and get paranoid that just walking him and letting him sniff will get my dog sick. Yeah, absolutely. And it can happen. I mean, I've had people call me. I had a woman, this was a few years ago. She called me and said that she needed to cancel her dog's grooming appointment because her dog had kennel cough. And I was like, oh God, was he here? Because I didn't know, did she bring him for daycare? And she's like, oh no, he hasn't been there for over a month, but I take him walking in the neighborhood and that was it. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that can happen. Absolutely. If you're sniffing, if you have a backyard right now is the time to just leave them in the backyard, and build their immune system. Make sure that they're eating whole, fresh foods. You guys know how important that is. Staying away from sugars. Sugars are inflammatory foods. And if you're feeding, an inflammatory food, then your dog's going to be immune compromised during this time. So we want to, or always. So we want to be really careful with that. So, I don't know if there's much more I can add to this other than the fact that don't get too worked up about it, but be smart about it. It could actually be, I hate to say the word hype because I know there's people that are going to attack me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Da, 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 da. It's just that I've seen it so many. No, I don't think you need to double up on your probiotics. Absolutely not. It's kind of one of those things where it's like the gut only has so much room for its bacterias and its yeast. And one of the things people don't realize is that the body actually needs bacteria and yeast in order to be healthy. So we could just keep piling and piling more bacterias on our dogs. I actually don't think that dogs need to be given probiotics year round all the time. So no, I wouldn't double up on probiotics at all. I would just make sure that your dogs are eating their regular healthy foods. Hopefully you've learned enough from me that your dogs are eating healthy and, keep their stress levels down. There is some sugar. It's a different sugar. It's definitely a different sugar. So we're not talking about starch sugar or artificial sugars. These are natural sugars. So it's a natural carbohydrate. So I'm not worried about that. And particularly right now, I mostly love the fact that honey has the antiviral, antibacterial in it. So that's why I want to make sure that that's in all of our water bowls at the spa. Raw honey is best. And if you can get raw local honey, even better. So if you can get something from your farmer's market, that kind of thing, dogs like it. Make sure that your dog, before you put it in your water, get 2 water bowls, and kind of keep an eye on your dog to make sure, because I don't want your dog to get dehydrated right now, because that is also going to be immune compromising. We want to keep them as hydrated as possible. So definitely make sure that you're checking to make sure your dog will still drink the water with the honey in it. Wanted to get your thoughts. How can I get in touch? Message Spaw Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. Just message me through there, and you can send it over to me. There's honey in Dr. Morgan's mouth spray. Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. Dr. Morgan's amazing. I was trying to get them all on today, but we kind of threw this on very quickly. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get any of the vets on here today. But it just seemed like this was it was an explosion. And it was like, we got to talk about this. So I can kind of just let people know that, don't pay close attention. By the way, a lot of the stories I'm hearing are my dog is fine. And so I think more dogs we're going to come out of this and be fine than there are dogs that are going to die from it. I think that is going to be the reality no matter what. So keep that in mind. This isn't, something that I think we're going to lose all of our dogs from. Just so keep that in mind still. Honey and water. Absolutely. We want to keep the honey in the water. Oh yeah. When we know more about it, I'll be out here talking about it. I just always worry. I try not to, be a conspiracy theorist. In fact, I really am not one, but I also do worry that, drug companies get a hold of stuff like this and they hype it up and then they create a vaccine for it. And it always worries me that is what ends up happening. They can sell more vaccines. There's a lot of people really out there right now questioning the validity of revaccinating. And truthfully, I think that some of the drug companies are really losing those sales. And so if we can put this out there, that is my fear. That's what I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not so quick to say, oh, this is all hype. It's all stupid. I don't want to do that. But at the same time, Manuka is the best. It is the most expensive for a 7-pound dog. I would literally put 2 tablespoons in your dog's water, and just make sure that they're drinking it. So yeah, it is a concern of mine that this is a pharmaceutical hype. And for those of you who don't know, a lot of times drug companies will put out this disease and then they create a vaccine for it, or they sell the current vaccines, which I guarantee you right now that there are a ton of people getting more Bordetella vaccines than they've ever gotten before, more para-influenza. So I know that's happening. The sad part is if this isn't, I mentioned it earlier, if you didn't hear me, if this isn't a form of Bordetella and it's a new virus, then getting the Bordetella vaccine isn't going to protect you. No, absolutely not. I don't want to discount those that are getting sick. There are dogs getting sick for sure. Absolutely. I wouldn't want to do that. And that's why I'm saying I want to really kind of pay close attention to this over the next few, weeks, months, however long it's going to take, just so that we can make sure honey all year round in water, or just when it's around, this is around. Wouldn't hurt you to do it all year round. Honey is a really great thing to give your dogs. You just want to pay close attention. If your dog is, getting stuff like yeast and stuff, even though it's a natural sugar, it still is a sugar. So you want to kind of pay close attention. But it is, it's just a sad thing. And I really, really hope this doesn't turn out to just be all of a sudden, something new. It's happened with the flu, and you're going to love me with honey in the water. Yeah, they do. Most dogs love honey in the water. So that is one of the things I have had to do at the spas. I do have a bowl of water that doesn't have honey, because I can't guarantee that every dog will drink the water in the honey. So 90% of our water bowls have honey in it. It was funny today. I went and put honey in the water and didn't tell everybody what I was doing. And then myself, a little while later, I went back there and out of the corner of my eye, noticed that the water was yellow. And I was like, oh my God, a dog peed in the water, because I completely forgot I put honey in there. And then a little bit later, a bunch of my groomers who aren't really in that room, they just kind of passed through it. They were like, Carrie, I think someone's peeing in the water. I'm like, oh no, I put honey in it. Watermelon is fine. Mostly what I'm talking about when I talk about sugars are non-soluble carbohydrate sugars, things that turn to sugar. So potato, rices, pea starches, any of those kind of things, they feed yeast in the body, and then it becomes very inflammatory for your dogs. Yeah, it was so funny, Beverly. I mean, and I just did it too. And then I walked back there and I was like, oh my God, who's peeing in the water bowl? So stupid. That's my brain. I was so busy today that I like literally didn't even realize I did that. Just please make sure that your dogs are drinking the water. Yes, they can absolutely have allergies to honey. So you definitely want to start gradual and then pay close attention, right? Like always, anytime you add something, you want to pay close attention for the next day or two to see if itching increases, those kind of things. I'm guilty of that. I got to tell you, for those of you who don't know, my dog was just diagnosed with mitral valve disease. So it's something that they're born with, and he made it this long before. Actually, he still doesn't have any symptoms, so I'm pretty excited about that. So he has no symptoms. I caught it just because I took him in for his wellness exam, and I caught it. And I started giving him an amazing product that I still think is absolutely amazing. And I'm just devastated that I am now positive that Ansel's allergic to it. But it's called I Heart You, and it's from Solutions. And it has everything you want in something for your dog's heart. But my dog, hey, I know, I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about cat boarding next week, guys. And I can't wait to talk about with Jay and Adrian from the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. So I'm super excited to talk to you about boarding cats because boarding, they did an episode a couple weeks ago. The Two Crazy Cat Ladies did an episode on, I can't remember exactly what you guys called it, but it was something about traveling. It was traveling with your pets, like how to travel with your pets. And I had an incident that we're going to talk about, and it just really kind of upset me. And I thought, someone needs to do an episode. I should do an episode, but I think Jay and Adrian are better at doing this episode on questions to ask your boarding facilities for your cats, because sometimes you can't travel with your cats. Not all cats travel well. So we got to talk about some of the things that you can do better when you're dropping off your cats, and things to tell your boarding facilities and stuff. So, oh, Isabel loves honey. I'm so excited. Yeah. Most dogs do love honey. Most dogs do. Cats, not so much. So far, we haven't heard anything about upper respiratory in cats of going around. It's mostly, so far, all I've heard is dogs. And with cats, I will tell you, Jay and Adrian can probably attest to this. Usually when a cat's having an upper respiratory infection, it's their litter. You can tell which dogs will likely get sick. Does your healthy pups have to worry about this going around? It's true. What I meant when I said that is when people bring their dogs into me for boarding, and I see their everything that they've had done at such a young age and how much they've had it done. Thanks for posting that, Lori. I heart you. My dog happens to be allergic to one of the herbs in there that has just been driving him crazy. And I'm so guilty of not paying attention after I gave it to him, because I was so excited that Solutions made this product that had every herb I wanted in there, and it had dandelion root in there. And dandelion root is a diuretic. And so when a dog has mitral valve disease, we really need to keep all of the fluid away from the heart. And so I was super excited because it had everything I wanted in it. It had the hawthorn, everything I wanted. And then Ansel just started itching like crazy, and I wasn't paying attention. And I thought, oh, it's the wind, it's this, it's all this stuff. And then I took it away, and here we are. So now I have to go back and find all of those herbs. I might have to do them individually for him to get the hawthorn and everything. So, so far I have not heard of dogs getting anything like this from humans, or humans getting it from dogs. Humans do not get Bordetella or parainfluenza kennel cough from your dogs. So the likelihood is, I'm going to say slim. There are some things that dogs can get, humans that can transmit, stuff like leptospirosis is something that can be transmitted from dog. Rabies, of course, is from dog. But those are the only two. I'm probably forgetting something. other than parasites like tapeworm. But tapeworm actually wouldn't come from your dog. It would become from you eating a flea. Do you know if it's okay to give the solutions product if they are taking vet medin? I have two with it. Yes, yes, they can take it. Only one is on the medication. Yeah, absolutely. They're herbs and they're all very, very safe. My dog is not on vet medin yet. Like I said, no symptoms at all with my dog. So I'm pretty excited. And I'm so sorry that you also are going through that. It's just sucky. And it's something that I hope we can get out of our dogs, breed it out of them somehow. So yeah, I'm not going to worry at all right now, Lisa, about humans getting this, because it's very rare that dogs and cats and dogs and humans share something other than like a parasite, like a tapeworm. But again, you wouldn't get that from touching your dog with tapeworm. You'd have to eat a flea. And like parvo isn't transmitted. Bordetella, the upper respiratory ones, I'm thinking parainfluenza, Bordetella, those are not transmitted to humans. So I don't think this one will be either. And I certainly haven't heard it. But again, we're going to get new stuff as we go further and further along into this. So going back to talking about when I look at a dog, when a dog comes in and I get their report, and I can see at such an early age, like I'll get puppies in that are 4 months old and they've already had all these vaccines. They've had dewormers, they've had flea and tick medication and heartworm medication and ear cleaners to clean their ears every week. And then on top of that, they're not eating a good food. Yeah, I can absolutely tell that this dog will be sick very soon. I am not worried about looking at the second part of that. I am always worried about my dog's health. Don't get me wrong. But currently, right now, I am not worried about my dog's getting this. I feel like if my dogs were to get this, they would definitely be able to fight it off. Even Ansel, who has mitral valve disease, he's, other than the fact that he has that valve problem opening, which is not good, right? His heart isn't pumping quite as often, quite at the rate it should be. So he's so healthy. Otherwise, he is not immune compromised in a way that his immune system, I think his immune system will be able to fight off a cold if he gets it. And I think that's the important thing to know, right? Like no one's guaranteeing that large tart, we're seeing a cardiologist next week. I'll likely be dropping by the Spaw to chat with you about food. I'm worried they might put him on a prescription kibble. Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know what cardiologist you're seeing. So I went to Dr. Miller, who I think is one of the top cardiologists in the field that I have researched, and she's actually right over at Blue Pearl, which that is not a plug for Blue Pearl. It's a plug for that cardiologist. I think she's amazing. But it's unfortunate, I think, that when our animals have certain things that they come up with a processed prescription diet. Ansel is going to continue to eat his whole fresh food. Yes, Dr. Sarah Miller, oh, you are good. I love her. I think she's really, really, really great. The only thing that I wanted to do differently that Dr. Miller, and this would be for all of you guys, if you have dogs that have heart problems or are, you're concerned about it, or if your pets in the future do have heart problems, this is what I did differently. So Dr. Miller had suggested that he comes in every 6 months to have another echo done on him, which is the echocardiogram. But I'm doing it every 2 months. I'm going to be doing it every 2 months because if you need to adjust something, or something like my dog is taking a couple of other things that he's taking, which for some reason, ubiquinol. So he's taking ubiquinol right now. And so I want to make sure that he's not progressing fast. So I know it's more expensive for me. So I am doing, JMO can vouch. Yay, Blue Pearl is such a great neurology and cardiology department. Yeah, I think they do. There's some issues with Blue Pearl that I don't like, because it's obviously a very expensive place, and it's also it's a corporation type thing. But other than that, I think that Dr. Miller is amazing and caring and loving, and so I'm going to do that. But I think that when your dog has a heart problem, that going 6 months, when you consider how rapid our dogs live, I mean, how rapid they age, I think 6 months is too long for me to wait to see if I need to change something in his diet or if I need to up his doses. So because of his heart condition, I'm doing it every 2 months. I'll add Manuka to their water. I need to jump off. Yes, absolutely. I would start doing that right now, Nelsa. Get some Manuka honey in their water right now. Keep their immune systems up, all of that kind of stuff. So it's 6 o'clock, guys. Believe it or not, I need to go back to the spa. I kind of ran out of there, and I need to go back there because it is a very busy weekend, and I need to go get everybody fed and all of that kind of stuff. So they're not alone. That's the other thing, guys. Don't board your dog somewhere where somebody's not there from all night long. And I'll tell you why. It's not that I don't think your dogs will probably be okay. What I do think, though, is when there's not somebody there at night, the stress level goes up and the barking goes up. And the barking is actually spreading more stuff into the air, the constant stress and barking stress. And that can go on. I know some boarding facilities that they leave at 6:30 and nobody's back there till 8 o'clock the next morning. So that's the other thing I would stay away from if you're boarding your dogs this weekend or this holiday season, is making sure that someone's there 24 hours a day so that you can keep that stress level down. We have a dog boarding with us right now that if he can't have his eyes on a person, he is panicking. So choose wisely and don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. The more questions you ask these boarding facilities, their ears might start going, oh, am I going to lose clients if I don't have someone spend the night? Am I going to lose clients if I'm not cleaning the floors like this? If I don't have HEPA filters? You're not just protecting your own dog by doing that. You're protecting the whole environment for all the dogs that come there. They don't have a voice. So maybe somebody can't be the voice for their own dog just for personality wise. They're afraid. So be the voice. Be the voice for everybody. Ask questions. Force these boarding facilities to do better, because the state and the county who license us isn't going to do it. They don't care. They don't care at all. They just care that we pay our bill. So all right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Just a real quick little thing about Pilot. I was going to share his story, but people seem to have gotten on here very quickly, so that was awesome. But really quick, if you saw my picture and my story that I wrote about Pilot, his name is now Jackson, and he took me almost 2 hours to catch. I actually got some help with a woman that I met there at the gas station on the border of Arizona and California. But it was a challenge for me because gas station lady said that people had been trying to catch that dog for 2 days. And I was like, move, I got this. So with the help of my little dog, Ansel, and I promise you, I didn't put him at any risk. Trust me. But I did use Ansel to get this dog, and we were able to capture him. And then my original plan, no, I didn't keep him. My original plan, because I always think I'm a hard ass. You know, that's how I got Ansel, right? I big hard ass. When I kept Ansel, I brought him home for the first time, and I told him the whole way home to my house, you're not even that cute. I'm not keeping you. This is a one night thing. I will find a home for you. That's what I said to Ansel like 13 years ago. So Pilot, I get Pilot in the car, and I still have a 3-hour drive to my mom's, and he just fell asleep in the back. He was so exhausted. I think for 2 days he didn't sleep at all. I think he paced looking for whoever dumped him there because he kept looking in everybody's car. Every time a new car would pull up, it was so heartbreaking, guys. It was like a child looking for their mom. And it just was heartbreaking. So every car that would pull up, he would look, he would get close, and then he would run away. And then he would look at the next car and he would run away. But eventually I caught him, and I got him in my car, and he slept for 3.5 hours all the way to my mom's house, and brought him in, and then I fed him, and then he slept all night in my room with me. But my original plan was, oh, no way, I'm not keeping this dog. I know I can't keep this dog. So I'm going to take him to the Sedona animal shelter. And everybody told me like it's a $1 million shelter that came out. It's beautiful. And I was like, yeah, that's where he's going. I'm taking him there first thing in the morning. Because we didn't get to my mom's until I think 10:30, something like that at night. I was so tired. And so I thought, oh yeah, first thing in the morning, he's totally going there because I can't do this. I cannot do this. And so, but the next morning I was already like, oh my God, this is the greatest dog. Like he slept all night. And then the next day I had to do some stuff with my mom and I put him in the back room. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to destroy my mom's back room. But it was her back room, which is purposely why I put him there. I thought, oh my God, he's going to destroy my mom's room. And when we got back 3 hours later, he was asleep on the bed and hadn't destroyed a single thing. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad you love that story. It's a true story, Liz. She's talking about my little asshole. That I share that story. I've shared it both times at the Thriving Pet Expo. So for those of you guys who don't know the story of why he's called my little asshole, you'll have to come to the Thriving Pet Expo because I'm not going to share it anymore until people come to the Thriving Pet Expo because I'm excited about having that thing, continuing it on and all of the stuff. Wait till you see what we have hopefully planned for next year. But so that was my plan, to take him to the Sedona animal shelter the next morning and then the next day. And then my friend who was with me when we got Pilot happens to have a friend who lives in Surprise, Arizona, which is a couple hours away from my mom's. And he called him and his name's Matt. So Matt said, oh my God, just last week, he said he went to the animal shelter looking for a dog the same size as Pilot, the same kind of everything that Pilot had, but he was struggling because he didn't have a lot of time to train the dog. So he didn't want a puppy. He didn't want a dog that had all these pre-existing problems. And I said to him, Matt, listen, I have worked with dogs for 40 years. I'm telling you right now, if you pass up on this dog, you're going to regret it if you really do want a dog. I never talk people into getting dogs. But I said, if you're really looking for a dog, this is the dog. So he drove up to my mom's and took Pilot back to his house. Pilot, now Jackson, took Pilot back to his house because I told him, look, if you just take him for a couple days, and if you are like, nope, absolutely not, then on my way back from my mom's, I'll pick him up. And then my plan was to bring him to Orange County and find a home for him because by this, one night with me, I was already in love. And I got a call from Matt the next day and he said, oh, so we're going to name him Jackson and we're keeping him. He was the greatest dog and he got the greatest home. He's going to go camping and he's going to do all the stuff that dogs love to do. So it was pretty awesome. I'm so glad you guys liked the Thriving Pet Expo. I'm still going to say because I have to, because there's some things, but if we do the Thriving Pet Expo again, it will be Valentine's Day weekend, 2025. So because I'm going to move the expo out, I know, and I love the name. Jackson's such a great name. I'm going to move the expo out because we're going to stay away from October, even though I loved October. There's a lot of pet stuff going on in October, including the AHVMA, which I like to go to. So I am going to have to move out my expo. And I really want to do it on Valentine's Day because so many people that were at the expo last year said that it was a huge love fest. And I thought, you know what? I love that because that's what I was trying to make it be, where people could come together and really kind of love on each other and share stories and be part of that and be vulnerable and all of the stuff that if you heard my keynote. So, but I have some really exciting stuff planned that I am working on. But I still can't guarantee that we're going to do the expo because it comes down to a few technicalities or whatever that I'm still not sure are going to go through. But you think that last year was good. If it goes off in 2025, you're going to be shocked. However, I am thinking about this year doing a small little tiny one locally. I already have a couple of people who are interested in talking about doing it this February 2025, but it would be really, really small. So, and we're going to be talking, I think, about a couple of different things. So it'll be awesome. So I'll keep you guys updated. Anyway, I do have to let you guys go. I got to get back to work. I think our video goes on till 7. So if you want to watch me cleaning, I'll be cleaning till God knows when I'll be done. So I'll keep you guys updated there. If you want to go on our website, you can just go on to, although Lori, since you're there, and you guys can hear I'm going to talk to her real quick. I think that our timing is off because the time change. So I think I don't know if the video is still going at 7 because I think the time changed, just so you know. So if you guys try to go on right now to look at your dogs and it's not on, I think our time change thing messed us all up. It always does every time we time change. But normally you can go on and you can watch the dogs at the spa from 4 to 7 every day. And that's where I am too, although there's no sound. So you can't hear me talking, but you'll see me cleaning up and playing with the dogs and all that fun stuff. So, all right, guys, I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry some of the vets weren't able to get on here, but like I said, I kind of threw this out there very quick. We did post some stuff from the vets. They're on Saving Pets One Pet at a Time. There are some posts on there. I think Dr. Josie posts some. I'm not sure if Dr. Morgan did, but I bet you could go to Dr. Morgan's site and find out some other things that you can be doing to protect your dogs. I know there's going to be a lot of stuff out there. Be careful, though. Don't think that you can protect your dogs by just throwing the kitchen sink at them. Just pick one or two things. Don't go out buying a bunch of stuff and panicking and over-vaccinating your dogs. Don't do any of that kind of stuff. Just try to keep doing what you're doing. Keep an eye on your dogs. Pay close attention to them during this time. And, if you don't have to take them somewhere, don't. And if you do, make sure it's the right fit for what you're trying to do. Okay. All right, guys. I hope this was helpful. I will see you soon. I know I haven't been on live very much lately, but I will be next Monday. I don't know if Jay and Adrian are still here, but if you guys are, I think it's if you don't follow the Two Crazy Cat Ladies, do. So follow the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. I'm going to be on their podcast next Monday. I think that's the 29th. And I believe it's at 5:00. If you don't follow the Two Crazy Cat Ladies, please do. They have such valuable information, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff then too. So, all right, guys, take care, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you, Lori.